But let's get to a very conversation for today. I did tell you we want to talk about human rights. It's an essential conversation because the Constitution provides for it, fundamental human rights, and there are also limits. There are rights as well as responsibilities. And there's been this back and forth sometimes between the police and citizens and all of that. So, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, joining us via Zoom, almost a senator. Leonard Silk Ahmed Raji joins us via Zoom. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Senior Advocate, I almost wanted to give you the title of a senator. Maybe you'll be contesting pretty soon, but that's just an aside. Merry Christmas in arrears and happy Boxing Day, I must say. Let's roll through a few things and let's talk about, I know that, you're here to talk about the legalese and the laws as far as human rights is concerned, but maybe your thought as to what's just played out moments ago and where the rights of these people who are now dead, if you allow me to use that word. What I mean by that, what is left as an option to the families that they left behind in terms of rights now. We understand that the bombing occurred in Sokoto State. 10 civilians were killed, and the army has said that, look, we targeted and we're precise as to who these terrorists are. We avoided as much mistakes as possible, but this whole idea that civilians were killed, the only reason they could have been killed by the army's account, although they said they will investigate, is the fact that they perhaps were with the criminals or they were harboring the criminals. The government has said these are innocent villagers. So in the eyes of the law, maybe you give us what this means as quickly as possible.
Well, it's an unfortunate incident. And first of all, we pray for the repose of the souls of those who were killed. And I think the best thing is for both Sokoto State government and the military authorities to put heads together and find a solution to the problem by way of looking at how to compensate the innocent victims. I repeat, innocent victims. We cannot dismiss what either party is saying, but all it calls for is collaboration, because this is the military is putting it like, oh, we targeted these people. Perhaps they are using some of these people as human shield. That calls for some investigation. And until there is a thorough investigation, you cannot really make any far-reaching conclusion. So the best, in my own opinion, is for the Sokoto State government and the military authorities to come together and less of press interviews, less of dramatization and what have you, so that they can really look into this matter and come up with some solution to assuage the feelings and especially the relations of those who lost their lives. They are not without any rights, but of course, no right for the dead, but for the relations who stand to lose because of the loss of those innocent victims. I repeat, innocent victims. That is my reaction to it.
But before I let you go, before I let you off this particular issue, I crave your indulgence. If they are found to be mistakes, is compensation enough? Is there any way maybe the people in the military can be held accountable beyond just asking for compensation under the law? Because our military, they are doing a great work. We must say that in addition.
You said you have called it a mistake. If there's a mistake, you can't punish your military authorities for such mistakes, because it's like a war situation. In executing wars, innocent people may suffer one way or the other. This is not an excuse for arbitrary exercise of powers, but when such occurs, I think in the circumstances, compensation will do. Because The military didn't just wake up to go there. Something gave rise to their going there. You have to recollect that. They didn't just go there and start a bombing place and what have you. It's because they are targeting some people. And their claim, I'm not saying they are right or they are wrong, is that they located these individuals are in that axis. Unfortunately, innocent people lost their lives in the process. The military authority are in a position to investigate these claims, and they are in a better position than the civilian people or the civilians or even the Sokoto state government. The best thing is collaboration between the two so that they can go into the root of the matter. But you have to be careful. You don't demoralize your military because of a matter of this nature. Because if you demoralize them, you risk losing their, giving their best for an exercise of this nature.
All right, let's move on from there to the issues that we brought you to come and talk about. That has to do with issues around human rights. Recently, there has been some back and forth, especially with the police and some citizens online and all of that as to what is what in terms of defamation, libel, and slander. So broadly, I want you to speak to what the law says about defamation. Then I'm going to show you some piece of legislation for your own intervention.
Well, the law of defamation is very simple. I believe this is my worth, and somebody has come to diminish it, either orally or in permanent form, and the aggrieved person goes to court. That is all about defamation or libel. Defamation can either be libel or it can be slander.
Slander.
Yeah, that is orally. But libel is the one that is in a permanent form. That is my understanding of what is meant by defamation in the law of torts.
Okay, because we have this issue of criminal defamation as to civil defamation, we can piggyback on the issue of Farotimi versus Afe Babalola and some states that have some states that have decriminalized defamation. I understand that Lagos, Edo, and Ekiti State have actually decriminalized it. But there's something I want to show you, and that has to do with the Cybercrime Prohibition and Prevention Act 2015 and also the amendment. So I will read it if my producer can get it up for me and what this actually means. Because we've seen situations where we're hearing that if you cut someone, you can be charged and all of that. So the first one says, a person who knowingly or intentionally sends a message, if they can hold that for me, please, sends a message or other matter by means of computer system, is first grossly offensive, pornographic or something on indecent, obscene, and menacing character, causes any such message or matter to be sent, and B says he knows to be false for the purpose of causing, which is my interest here, which is what I want you to speak to. It's 24(1)B. He knows to be false for the purpose of causing annoyance, inconvenience, danger, obstruction, insult, injury, criminal intimidation, enmity, hatred, ill will, or needless anxiety to another, and causes such messages to be sent. Then he talks about what you call the consequence, or if the person is found guilty by the court of law. But there was an amendment to that effect. So this, if you can see the screen, this is the portion I wanted you to speak to when it was legislated on. But I think the framers of the law also amended it. If you can get me the next one that says, he knows to be false for the purpose of causing a breakdown of law and order, posing a threat to life, or causing such messages to be sent. The reason I'm saying this is because perhaps if you look at this, how is this justiciable under the law? Because there was a time this held sway. If I take somebody to court, somebody takes me to court, how do you make a case about insults? How do you make a case about inconvenience, danger, and all of that? That's my question, sir.
Well, these are new laws they've not really been tested. They what we call testable legal hypotheses. Whatever I say today will just be a guess on my own understanding of what the provision is all about, or the provisions are all about. But here, what the law is, cyber crime is by use of message, i.e. you send the pornography or you video somebody and then you begin to use it to harass him and what have you. It's all about sending messages. It is not strictly speaking in the class of libel or defamation or slander. I think we should get that distinction very clear. This, what gives rise to this is the abuse of social media. This is an attempt to curb the excesses in the social media, which is quite different from what we know in the law of tort. When the law of tort was growing, and we have the law of defamation as it is, technology was still very low there. So the common law did not capture what cyber issues are now raising. And that is why the cyber crime has now come up with provisions like this. But like I said, it's a testable legal hypothesis. It is not, it's not something that has, we have not seen the attitude, we have not read the attitude of court to these provisions. But my humble understanding is this is limited to abuse of social media platform by way of sending messages, text messages, and what have you, but not in the way and manner we understand libel to be. I don't know if I've communicated.
Yes, Senior Advocate, yeah, I'm going to stay on it for a while. I understand you perfectly. So I know the law has now been amended so that for the purpose of clarity and fact, that section that was a bit controversial, which people have screamed that this is tantamount to an affront on the Constitution or literally gagging someone not to speak their mind, has now been adjusted or amended in 2024. So because that was 2015, it knows to be false or for the purpose of causing a breakdown of law and order, posing a threat to life or causing such messages to be sent. But if we go back, how do you prove, or what does the law define as insult?
Well, that is why I say it's still a testable legal hypothesis. All this, we have to look into the provisions. Is there anywhere insult was defined? Or do we have to rely on the ordinary meaning of the word insult in the dictionary? And what you consider as an insult, I may not consider as an insult. Insult differs from class to class, environment to environment, although there are some standard ones, but in some cases, what you may see as an insult, I may not see it as an insult. The use of language, I mean, if you say, don't be silly, in some environment, it's okay. In some environment, it's an insult. So these are the issues. So I do not know the views our court will take. We have to be very cautious. Nobody can give you an exact interpretation or what the court will say these provisions connote. So like the insult now, what to you is an insult may not be to another person as an insult.
Yeah, the reason... Yes, go ahead, sir, go ahead. Go ahead.
There is no objective definition of several categories of insult.
Okay.
You can't find them. But for example, a small child may tell the father, Daddy, don't be silly. In some climate, that will be taken seriously. The child may hand the greatest beating of his life.
Okay, let's also talk about something that came up online. I think it was the false PRO, because I want to take this issue because I see that it generated a lot of conversation, and the back end of it is the fact that people are just worried about what this means to free speech. People are saying you have the liberty to say anything you want, but after you said what you want, are you ready for the consequence of what you said? And some people say, look, I have my liberty, where your own ends is where it begins. Yes. No, just let me land. Yes, senior advocate, I wanted to contextualize because if I stand to be corrected, but I know that I remember, but I stand to be corrected, that the first PRO had mentioned things like if you curse someone online, for instance, there are consequences for it. Is that also true in law? I mean, cursing.
If you say what?
Curse. C-U-R-S-E.
If you curse somebody?
Yes.
Well, you see, that is why I say, what is a curse? What is a curse? Is it defined anywhere in the law? Or what is the ordinary meaning of a curse under the English language? Do you have to swear with something before it amounts to a curse? Or if you just pronounce something very harsh, like it will never be whatever for anybody, will that amount to a curse? What if there's a basis for your anger before you utter the curse? If there's a basis. So these are new provisions. We can only do some, what I would call intelligent guesswork until the courts give us the guidelines and they begin to give meaning to the provisions. We may be running the risk of advising wrongly.
Yes, because we understand recently some people were taken into custody to this effect, but that's still a subject between the police and I think that will end up in court and all of that. That's why people are raising this concern. But in your view, in trying to manage some of the excesses of the social media, aka free speech online, are we as a nation putting legislative structure in such a way that we may end up gagging free speech, in your view?
Well, I do not think so, because the abuse in the social media is almost getting out of hand. And the use of, well, I say abuse of artificial intelligence is a factor we have to look at. For example, you put the picture of somebody with a funny cap on it. They just presented the picture of Baba Adeboye with an Islamic dressing. I don't know whether it is true or false. And some people say it's artificial intelligence they are using. Shouldn't there be a limit to which, and in any event, even under our constitution, the rights, they are not absolute. The rights go with responsibilities. No absolute right. Because if we are not careful, through artificial intelligence, they will just bring up a picture of somebody naked with another woman. And where do you go from there? What kind of liberty is that? So I agree, the law must strike a balance between the right to speak and other people's right to protect their dignity. There must be a balance. The right to speak cannot be absolute. No, it is never anywhere. It cannot be absolute. But the extent to which the law will go in curtailing it is what we just have to sit down and strike a balance. We need to strike a good balance.
So, senior advocate,
the courts, yes?
Yeah, senior advocate, in your view, what is that balance? So, is the law already clear about this balance? Given Section 39, if I'm correct, and between Section 39 and 45, or there has to be some adjustment, amendment, or review that can clearly give balance? So, balance in terms of absolute, not absolute now, protecting strongly civic space and freedom of expression. Also, taking responsibility for being careless with your level of liberty. What is that balance?
The balance is, if a report is obviously careless, and I'll give you an example. Baba Adeboye was dressed like somebody in the Gulf, which ordinarily shouldn't be. Whoever does that, if it is not true, he has transgressed, he has extended, he has gone beyond what is normal. Or you take, through artificial intelligence, you take the picture of a man and then in a bed with another woman. I mean, that shouldn't be. Your freedom to speak shouldn't extend to that. But if there are comments on germane issues, if there are views you are expressing, honestly believing what you are talking about, why not? Yeah, you can. But where what you are trying to portray or the scenario you are trying to paint has no justification, then it should be penalized.
Okay. I'm going to come back to a few things, but I just want to carry as much as the issues as possible. But we've seen the recent thing that happened in, unfortunately, this December and last December. I don't know what's been going on. Last December, it was a carnage on the plateau where there were attacks and there were killings. This December 2024 is more about Stampede from Anambra to the FCT, and then the first one that happened in Ibadan, and some of the things we're seeing around. I saw, I think that was a charge sheet I saw. I understand the Ooni of Ife's ex-wife, the Princess Naomi, has been taken into custody, and one other gentleman, three other persons have now been taken into custody to that effect. And then they are charged to court. And one of the things I saw, which I would like you to speak to, is they talked about conspiracy to commit felony or acceleration to death. People have been speaking to the fact that how far can the law go in trying to address this issue? I want you to speak from the legal point of view. They set out to help people, to support people. Perhaps they've been doing it for years. And then we understand that the event was supposed to start by 10. It started by 8. But people started coming midnight or so. We even heard that some people threw their children over fence. We don't know whether that's true or not. But now they have to answer to the deaths of those children. How does the law view this kind of situation?
Well, I think it's a social problem. And why do I say it's a social problem? When you look at the narration, obviously, the Mrs. Naomi or prophetess Naomi Silekwala and the broadcaster Amzat,
yeah.
They didn't set out with a guilty mind. They didn't set out to kill the children. No way, they didn't. But because of the level our society is, what were they going to give them? 5,000, 7,000? And the accounts I heard, most of these women, they were there with small children. At a point, they were now throwing their children into the compound from outside because they were not allowed in. Well, I do not think it's a matter for the court. I think it raises a social problem, which the relevant authorities should just put heads together and find out how we can control things like this in future. Because shortly after that incident, another one happened in Ibadan. And people still went there. 2 or 3 people got their legs damaged. Why can't people resist such kind of a thing? I mean, it's obviously something must be pushing them. If somebody delivered a baby just a week ago and she heard of such gathering and she went there with a new baby, then something is wrong, something very critical. I believe this is where the society should just, and our rulers should look into this. I'm not trying to blame anybody. I'm not saying the government is not doing their work as they should do. I mean, they are trying their best. After all, most of the problems, they met them. But they should please look at what I would call, we have immediate causes, then remote causes. What are the remote causes of all these problems?
Okay. Senior Advocate, yes. we're totally out of time. Just in 30 seconds, so what people are not happy with, that's why I asked you what the law says. It's, they went to do good, something happened, unfortunately and sadly and painfully, children died. Should they be in prison to that effect? Should they, or shouldn't they?
You see, I will not want to comment on it. I would not want to comment on that because they are being remanded by the court. And I should not be commenting on what the court has decided. But all I will say is the law punishes the heart, your intention, not your act alone. One will have to look at their intention. What was their intention? So, but I believe they should look more into the remote causes rather than immediate causes. What are the things giving rise to all these kind of problems? Why do you have to, why, because of 5,000, why will mothers, a 2-week-old mother, go in there with the children? Why would they be throwing their own kids over the fence? Something is inherently wrong. We need to look into that. But to your question as to what is the position of the law, I will not want to comment on it because it's sub judice. But the law will look at their intention.
Okay.
Yes.
Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Ahmed Raji, thank you so much for coming on the program. We appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.